What's going on, guys? It's Modern, and today I'm going to be going over the third round match from the very first VGC 16 Premier Challenge in Arizona. So for this round, I played against Habib, also known as Habbgun on Twitter, Showdown and NuggetBridge. And this is notable because he's actually the first person I played in this tournament that actually had both a solid team and a lot of experience for this metagame. Just given that my first round opponent didn't actually have a restricted Pokemon on his team, rather he had just an entirely VGC 15 team. And then the second round match was against my brother, who had only actually played a couple of games of this format prior to the Premier Challenge. So Habib was the first challenging opponent that I actually had to face. But luckily for me, my team had a lot of answers for his team. For instance, I have two ways to set up my speed control, whereas he pretty much auto-lost if I got the, let's say, a Tailwind up and he didn't have it up. Or maybe if I got a Trick Room up and then he has no slow Pokemon on his team. Now we're going to go straight into the leads right here. I do lead the Talonflame and the Kyogre against his Weavile and Salamence. Straight off the bat, I figured that Kyogre was very safe just to go for an attack right here. I figured that he probably would not double target my Kyogre this turn. If anything, he would just go for the fake out to play it safe, and then maybe if he wanted to, he could just attack my Talonflame with Salamence, which is actually what he ends up doing. Another potential play I could have seen him doing is maybe knock-offing my Talonflame, and then also going for a switch out into maybe like Kyogre with his Salamence. And maybe he could conserve his Intimidate for later in the match. Unfortunately, though, he does miss the Draco Meteor onto my Talonflame, so I was a bit surprised that he actually went for that. I was honestly figuring he'd probably go for a Hyper Voice, but again, it wouldn't really do anything to Kyogre, and it's like a 2-hit KO on my Talonflame. Now, this next turn, they actually end up switching out the Weavile into Kyogre, probably to conserve the Fake Out and the Focus Sash. I just go for the Brave Bird on the Salamence and then a Water Spout, thinking that it would pick up the knockout. But to my surprise, Water Spout actually gets a lower roll right here, and it actually misses the knockout on Salamence. And unfortunately, I do actually underspeed the Salamence too. I actually had this issue in the match versus my brother, but it didn't really matter right here just because Talonflame, I really wanted to get the free switch in at this point. Preferably into Scizor or something, just because I do have the Groudon. Don't want to go and concede the weather control just yet. And now at this point, the game's pretty much locked up. I would have to make a lot of bad plays to actually allow him to come back at this point. And this is actually one of the turns where I really wish I would have just maybe like bullet punched the Salamence and then gone for a Water Spout. Just because my Scizor can't survive any attack from his Kyogre, barring a full power Water Spout. But given that he's damaged, it really doesn't matter. And he goes for the Hyper Voice just to get chip damage, but it's fairly minuscule damage just because he went for the Draco Meteor. Does have the -2 special attack. Let's see, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. So for this next turn, I actually go for a really cool play. When I went for this play, Habib was like, I totally did not expect that. What I was thinking is that he might go for a Fake Out onto my Scizor since I showed the Bug Bite, and then maybe he would go for like a Thunder on my Kyogre to try to finish off the KO. Or he could also go for the double target into my Kyogre too. I was really scared of him having Thunder on his Kyogre the next turn, and if he did go for something like an Origin Pulse, I didn't want him to KO my Scizor, so I just go for a very safe switch into Groudon. And this is where the game pretty much gets locked up right here. He really doesn't have an effective way to KO my Groudon outside of his Kyogre now, and since I do have the Sun up, it really cannot do anything to my team. And if he does go for like a switch out next turn, he would just be sacrificing his Xerneas, and the game's pretty much over at this point. Now, I do think he could have had a chance against my team, even if he did manage to, or rather, if he did not get unlucky this match. I think I still could have just as easily pulled through. Just because I did have the Scizor in back, I could easily go for like an Ice Beam onto his Salamence, and then also maybe a Bug Bite into his Kyogre, which would put me in a very good position. At this point, he just goes for the Protecto with Xerneas, and like I said, the match is over. I think what he should have done for this match is maybe had the Crobat, just because if I did go for the Tailwind, he would be able to set up his own Tailwind, and if I had the Cresselia, then he could just go for maybe a double attack into it, predicting me to have Mental Herb, or he could just go for the very safe, very safe Taunt onto it, because if I don't have Mental Herb, then I can't get the speed control set up. And then also, if I were to make one other decision, I probably would have led something other than Kyogre. I would have rather had the, maybe like the Groudon or the Scizor as a lead, just because I could go for like a feint and a bullet punch. But yeah, the match is over. It was actually a fairly good match, a couple of hacksy moments, but really I had the game locked up. Once I got the speed control set up, I really didn't have any way to come back from there, barring maybe setting up his own Tailwind like I said earlier. So I will be working on the rest of the rounds for this Premier Challenge, guys. I'm hoping to get them all out by the middle of next week, just because I do have my college classes starting, and I also have a couple of days of work. So I will need to sort of speed up production. I know you guys really want to see these videos since the format is just starting up, and there is a huge lack of content. As always, guys, if you have not gone and done it yet, please go and like the video, and as always, thanks for watching.